Welcome to the Inbound Logistics video podcast series presented by Inbound Logistics Magazine. Today, we're going to be discussing some of the challenges facing shippers in the current market, as well as look at a few ways that they should and maybe should not try to address some of those hurdles. We're pleased to welcome our special guest today, Tracy Meetre, Chief Commercial Officer for Sunset Transportation. Tracy is going to share some of her insights on how to navigate the tricky supply chain market because, after all, freight is a crazy world. Our host today is Amy Roach. Amy, the floor is yours.
Hi, Tracy. How are you?
I'm good, Amy. How are you?
Great. Thank you so much for joining us. It's going to be...
Thank you for having me.
Oh, absolutely. You have such great experience and insight, and I think we're going to have a lot of fun talking about the crazy world of freight. I mean, that's what it is, right?
It truly is.
It truly is. So I'm just going to jump right in and kick it over to you. Start us off with kind of like a background. This has been an insane 2 years, lots of volatility, lots of ups and downs. Happily, we see like a little bit of leveling off and maybe even some cautious optimism. So tell us, what are you seeing out there? What are you hearing from shippers? What are the challenges? What's going on?
So the challenges never go away. They just shift. So right now we're seeing relief from premium freight costs. Costs are coming down to the shipper. So we've definitely shifted the market. You'll hear supply chain and logisticians talk a lot about, is it a shipper market? Is it a carrier market? Well, we're definitely in a shipper's market right now. And those costs are coming down. That doesn't say that, we can kick back and relax and all of their challenges are gone. They just shift to different areas. But it's certainly an opportunity after almost 2.5 years of disruption, high cost, even more unpredictability within the market to start garnering some savings for a shipper to their bottom line. So I think that first and foremost, that's a great opportunity, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. A lot of talk about fuel. Fuel has always fluctuated. It's always been either in favor or a challenge in our industry. So we've been dealing with fuel fluctuations forever, in a long time. Fuel challenges more a smaller carrier, an owner operator, somebody that's not part of a bigger fleet. Potentially, it's going to make it harder for them to compete. But fuel is generally a pass through, and at the end of the day, it is going to have more of an impact on inflation, which we all then feel.
Yeah, of course.
Yep. So the challenges that everybody is facing right now are going to be more around inventory levels. So we have very high inventory levels right now. During the end of the pandemic, companies pre-bought inventory ahead of sales. So now warehouse space is at a premium, and that has tight capacity around it versus, when we had tight capacity around the carrier market. Profitability and labor, either the labor shortages or, shifting labor markets is still a challenge. And at the end of the day, what we're seeing right now is across vertical industries, about a 20% downturn in shipment volume. We've looked at it every way possible. Is it one particular industry? And it just is kind of across the board. So unfortunately, volumes tank when freight costs tank. So that's just, again, an aspect of this crazy freight world. It takes a special kind of person that does this every day. And I've done it for 35 years, so I'm not sure what that says about me.
We won't say crazy, though. We won't go there.
Oh, well, we can.
That's great. One thing I think that maybe is a positive, if you want to call it that, out of the pandemic, is that it really did kind of help to elevate supply chain, and sort of raise the exposure within organizations. Can you talk a little bit about, maybe there's a benefit there for some organizations, and how can they kind of capitalize on that, the larger role supply chain is playing?
Absolutely. There were some verticals where supply chain early adopters, the chemical industry, pharmaceutical, early adopters of outsourcing and complex supply chains. It's always had a seat at the table. But now more than ever, it's being talked about, right? The pandemic was a huge disruptor. Whether you shipped globally or not, some component within your components were sourced overseas, and we all felt that disruption. Whether we're just managing domestic supply chains or global supply chains. So I think that what my big recommendation is now, and what I want to talk about, is capitalizing on that voice right now that you have to be able to get some things done within transportation and logistics within your organization. Now's the time to be asking for investment, whether it is in systems or looking to outsource and partner with a good 3PL that can help guide you through the next global disruption, or simply through a contractual bid to capitalize on the soft market and get savings. I also think that it's an opportunity for, whether you're a shipping manager or a VP of supply chain, to do some benchmarking and really get down and evaluate your supply chain, and then benchmark it and report on it to your stakeholders. I think that gets lost a lot. Everybody in the C-suite doesn't necessarily want to or need to know all of the mechanics of logistics and the daily operations. But there is a certain amount of education that needs to be done at that table, so that they understand the volatility, but also the vulnerability. The supply chain is very fragile right now. And there are a lot of different things that you can do to help insulate yourself and fortify your own supply chain.
Absolutely. Let's move on that, and let's talk about some action. What do shippers need to be doing now? And how are they going to balance, we want to be positioning, or they want to be positioning themselves to take advantage of this current market, and then also preparing for ongoing shifts. And like you said, everything shifts. There's always something. So how do they kind of do both of those things and balance them with some real concrete actions?
So let's just kind of break it down. I'm going to give 5 different actionable things.
Great.
And hopefully, at least if you're doing it, at least one of them, that will help, and it will benefit and should hit your bottom line. First and foremost, do an RFP. If you haven't started that, if you haven't done it yet this quarter, do a contractual RFP for your truckload and ocean business. The market is soft. I think we have a little bit longer. It may even come down a little bit on the truckload side, but it is a really good time to be doing a competitive bid with your carrier base. If you don't have the tools to do that, whether you have a lot of lanes, maybe you only have 10 lanes, do it in Excel, or pick up the phone and call a 3PL partner that can help you do that. But get some rates under contract and award that business and hold to that award, so that you can keep your carrier base. The other thing is, don't just bid it. Make sure you are benchmarking it. So this gets back to the PR for the shipping manager or the VP of supply chain. Make sure you're benchmarking your new rates against historical, so you can see what you've saved year over year, quarter over quarter, but also be able to, if you have a 3PL partner, they should also be benchmarking you against the market. Make sure you're benchmarking, breaking out your line haul, fuel, and accessorials. That's going to help you understand, if your freight cost doesn't go down, where was that cost increase coming from? Was it coming from fuel? That as a supply chain manager, you can't control that. So you need to have that broken out so you can explain that to your stakeholders. But benchmark it, track those savings, and give yourself some good PR within your organization by publishing that internally.
Absolutely. I love that. And then I think you mentioned before, the fragility of the supply chain and taking some time to look at vulnerabilities and, where are they on the supply side? Can you talk a little bit about that? Maybe it's contingency plans, what's a good way to get ready for that?
Yeah, so in a soft market, so freight costs don't just affect your outbound shipping. And one thing that a lot of organizations still have very separate groups that are procuring raw materials and then managing their outbound freight. Well, in procuring raw materials, they're also procuring freight or not procuring freight and negotiating delivered pricing. So this is an area that kind of, Amy, addresses everything. Do you have duplicity in your supplier base? Are you stress testing a second supplier at times? If everybody was sourced out of Asia when the pandemic hit, they couldn't get any supply. They didn't have any redundancy in their supplier base. They hadn't even been having those conversations. Probably not realistic for small and mid-sized shippers to have two, major suppliers that you are actively sourcing from.
Sure.
But you need to be having those conversations and, putting in some redundancy in place. But back to how you procure your raw materials coming in, make sure that the buyers are knowledgeable of when they should be negotiating delivered pricing and when they should be having fuel itemized on their invoice, always itemized, so that you can track that, hey, there's an opportunity to save here by flipping the terms of how we're procuring our goods and managing the freight and managing, whether that's ocean or air or cross-border from Mexico. But that's an aspect of freight that I think people, tend to forget. And because there are two different leaders generally that are in charge of that within the organization. But I think it's really, really important, especially in a soft market. You can capitalize on some big savings because the supplier is marking freight up if you're negotiating delivered pricing. So same thing on your outbound side. If you have a lot of prepaid and ad, right? You're adding cost for the that buyer to not have the headache of managing the freight. So I would also challenge you then on your outbound side for your prepaid and ad business. When was the last time you did an audit? How do you know you're truly covering your cost for freight? And for our customers, I can speak for what we do. We do a monthly reconciliation for our customers that have a significant amount of prepaid and ad business, so that they know what are they making off of freight, and they can make business decisions on that. So if competition is tight and they have some wiggle room and that freight cost, can they lower that freight allowance? And maybe that is just enough to make them more competitive to win more business.
Sure.
So really thinking about this holistically.
Yeah. So important to always have those real numbers and know what you're actually looking at. Absolutely. That's great advice. What about on demand? Can we talk a little bit about, is this a good time to, kind of take a look at demand in conjunction with your distribution footprint?
Absolutely. So people are no longer living where they work, if that makes sense. So, people are remote. We have a remote workforce. And with that, as consumers, so especially if you're in the B2C and you're selling to, consumer goods, you need to look at your demand. Your demand has I would venture to guess, changed. If the demand is pretty static, at least the way we are shopping has changed. We see it every day. Another retail, big chain retail going out of business. Brick and mortar is going by the wayside from a shopping experience. I don't know when the last time I was at a mall, it was. I mean, I think I'm on the daily route for Amazon, but we don't need to talk about my shopping. But yeah, it's totally, Amy, a great time to relook at your demand. So when I say that, what I mean is looking from a demand planning perspective. Where are your buyers? Where is your consumption happening at? Overlay that where your distribution footprint is. So are you still, if you're promising on the sales side that if they order today, it'll ship tomorrow, and you've forecasted years ago that, if they were within, X miles of the plant, they get next day delivery. Have you validated that recently? And that's the kind of demand planning that I'm talking about. Depending on how big your network is, that can be fairly complex to do, but it is really, really important, because when you are at that table with leadership, and if you negotiated, go back up to our contractual RFP that we're going to do, right? And we're going to get some great savings. Well, if we just do that and we didn't take into account that our demand may have shifted, and now all of a sudden we are more than 500 miles from our demand, and our length of haul has increased, our fuel costs are going to increase. And so if you're seeing then a higher freight cost, your stakeholders are going to be like, what the heck? I thought we had all these great rates. Well, we did, but we also then didn't validate that we were still had a solid distribution footprint to meet that demand and really, really capture those savings. There are software that can do this. So again, depends on how large your footprint is, but a partner. I know that for us as a 3PL partner, we offer demand planning, supply chain engineering as part of our continuous improvement and strategic account management platform. So it doesn't always have to come with a large cost, and you don't have to be this giant, manufacturer that's got $100 million in freight spend. What I'm really excited about for us is in late 2022, we were acquired by Armada Supply Chain Solutions. And they are a giant in the restaurant chain and food service industry. And they have an amazing tech stack and a lot of depth and supply chain engineering. It was crazy. I first met their C-suite. They have a chief innovation officer. And I'm like, how cool is that? Just somebody like focused on what is the future of supply chain from a tech perspective. So I'm really excited that we now have those capabilities and are able to bring that down to the mid and smaller market, where it probably was cost prohibitive to do some of those demand planning studies or network optimization. But I'm really excited to be able to bring those tools to our shippers of all size, and really be able to make a difference for them.
There's so much power in that, and congratulations on that acquisition. That's great.
Thanks. It's been a great ride.
I want to ask you, I've heard you say before that shippers need to work to become a shipper of choice. So go through that a little bit. What can shippers do to position themselves to really be a shipper of choice for their partners?
So when I talk about a shipper of choice, it's really adhering to a behavioral process of how you treat your carriers and how you treat your partners. And it really, really is critical. As at the end of the day, transportation's a relationship business. They haven't automated all of us yet.
Right.
May still be coming, but it still is a relationship business. And that's not only a relationship with your 3PL partner and your customers, but also with that carrier. And you're going to see benefits drop down to the bottom line in your rates if you are planning ahead and working with your carriers, minimizing dwell, detention, and delays at pickup and delivery. So in both your loading and receiving docks, even if you're space constrained, and I know a lot of shippers are, especially mid to smaller ones. If you don't have staging room, and unfortunately it's going to be a little bit longer of a loading time, have some facilities for your carriers to utilize while that is happening. Look at a drop trailer, solution for you so that you can load those trailers, put them out in the yard, and then you can contract with carriers to do a drop and hook. Pay your carriers promptly. That is huge. If you do one thing from this whole discussion, pay your carriers timely. Pay them in 30 days. They are struggling like everybody else, and continual revenue allows them to keep drivers happy and getting our product rolling down the street. And communication and transparency, with your carriers. Treat them like a partner, and you will have many benefits to come, from that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a perfect segue, as we talk about the partnership. Obviously, there's two sides. There's the shippers, and then there's the carriers and 3PLs. So talk a little bit, from your perspective about that role. How do the carriers and 3PLs come into play, helping shippers, proactively plan with all of these things and partner to make sure that they have what they need and they're not trying to go it alone?
So from the carrier perspective, I think realizing that 80% of all goods today are delivered on a truck. So the carriers aren't going away anytime soon. We're not at the autonomous truck or drone delivery for a pallet of bricks, right? So they're integral, and they really should be treated like partners. They need to have business reviews. You need to work with them to understand, where you want them engaged on your footprint, but how does that overlay with their footprint? How can you be a better partner to the carrier? And the carriers need to be open to that as well, right? Open to making a commitment. And that's what it's really about. Finding those those carriers that your freight works well in their network at the right price, and they have good service. Don't lose those carriers. Capitalize on that. Have your carriers come in, go visit your carriers, understand the challenges that they are under. And then the carriers should do the same. So carriers need to also recognize that they need that shipper's business. So how can they be easier to work with? How can they better support that shipper's organization? And how can you impress upon them the importance of delivery reliability and on-time service? Right. The only way to do that is by talking and having a conversation about it together.
Right. And it has to be continual, right? There has to be, it's got to be a feedback loop. This is not a one and done, here's your plan, and that's it. So how do you make sure, when Sunset is working with shippers, how do you make sure you're on that continuous improvement?
So we have a scheduled engagement cadence with our customers and with our carriers. So we have a team, strategic account management, and then we have strategic carrier management. Two separate teams that are meeting with our customers and meeting with our carrier partners. And in those the agendas for those meetings look very, very similar. So we're sitting at the table with our customers on a weekly, monthly, quarterly basis, and then we look to have leadership from the C-suite of that customer engaged at a minimum of once a year, or twice would be great, and a QBR for annual alignment, understanding what's happening in their business, learning what's happening in their business, what are the factors that they're faced with from the market, and then how can, as a 3PL partner, how can we align our annual charter, if you will, to support their initiatives. So really becoming an extension of their organization. And it's I know everybody has so many meetings, and that can be, meeting fatigue is a real thing.
It's real.
But it's really important. I mean, we could talk for hours about, how to conduct a quick, meaningful meeting, but that's for another conversation, Amy.
Right, exactly.
But you have to be committed to it, and stick to those conversations. There's so much that just naturally bubbles up in the course of conversation about their business that you can pick up on and say, wait a second, you're having a problem in that area, we can help, or we did this for another customer. So transparent communication and a commitment to the partnership, both on the carrier side and the shipper side.
Absolutely. And when you're keyed in like that, you can actually help the shippers, not just with their supply chain goals, but you can kind of align things with the business's strategic goals as well, which is makes you a hugely valuable partner.
Absolutely. And if you don't already have a mindset of continuous improvement, get one. Or be that emerging leader in your organization that is going to, take that first opportunity. Or align with a 3PL partner that has that as part of their DNA. A good partner is not only able to execute your daily business and give you a dashboard with on-time delivery and typical KPIs. A good partner is going to sit at the table with you. They're going to understand what is happening. Are you maybe building a new plant? Where is that going to be located? How are you going to get the inventory there? Are you, branching out globally? Are you looking to nearshore? Talk to your 3PL partner about that. We deal with all different kinds of supply chains. I don't know that there's now I'm going to say this and then it's going to happen this afternoon. I don't know that there's a problem in the supply chain that we haven't dealt with somewhere.
I'm sure.
So really leverage that experience from your 3PL. They've been there, they've done it. They work in all different kinds of verticals. Let us help you through these unknowns. Maybe you've never expedited or had to charter a plane, or air freight a pallet of product so you don't have a line shut down. We have. If that comes up in this changing supply chain, reach out to your 3PL. And that's a big benefit for a smaller, mid-size, and a large company, right? It's so hard to find talent. And it's unrealistic to think that you're going to hire a subject matter expert in every possible mode, an expert in customs, all of these different things. But if you partner with the right 3PL, they can help you navigate these new and different challenges, and then put them on the hook for saying, okay, we want to improve our service. Come up with the benchmarking and the KPIs. How are we going to track that? How are we going to track success? And when will we know we were successful? People forget that whole tracking side of it. Absolutely. And everybody agreeing on how you're going to track it. That's a big challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Well, we've talked about a lot of things. You gave us a lot of really great actionable insights. Can you quickly just kind of put it all together? What does that look like on a daily basis when you're working one-on-one with the shipper? How do you take us through the process?
So typically our process, all the different kind of strategies that I briefly touched on today, we are doing every single day for our customers. It goes in ebbs and flows based on the need of that particular customer, but we are constantly asking the questions, what's happening in your business? What do you need to be prepared for? And then that allows us to pull out of our vast tool belt, if you will.
Mhm.
Okay, now's the time, shipper A, we need to be doing a contractual bid. Let's lock in some rates for 12 months. Let's get some savings to the bottom line. Let's do that. That never stops, right? Strategic procurement is a very fluid and ongoing thing. So your partner should be coming to you, hey, like last year, shippers wanted to procure 12-month contracts, but it wasn't right for them. And they were going to pay inflated costs throughout the year because they were asking a carrier in a volatile market to give them a rate for 12 months. That, wasn't realistic. So educating them and then saying, let's do a quarterly bid. We will do that heavy lifting for you so that you can ride the price swings and not overpay if you don't have to. So those types of things. Leveraging engineering, looking at your network, optimizing, whether it's load optimization, network optimization, or optimizing your processes, and how are we getting rid of needless, work? How are we adding value to the rest of that shipper's organization? For instance, sales has to quote freight, right? If they're quoting freight 6 months in advance, let's say they are, quoting a new build or they're in construction, those quotes sometimes get submitted 6 months to a year in advance.
Sure.
Are they aligned with your 3PL to help them quote? And we've seen a lot of benefit and kind of swimming around the whole organization and adding value where it wasn't necessarily intuitive, right?
Yeah.
So adding value to sales and helping them quote better and win business more by leveraging the freight costs. Then swimming over to forecasting to help them have better production schedules, understanding their inventory, and that they're spent $400,000 on intercompany shipments because they didn't have products in the right place.
Yeah.
How can we tackle that together?
Right.
And then we kind of swim into the financial lane, and how can we help them with better freight accruals? These are things that we're doing every day for our customers as an extension of them. And you don't have to be a giant shipper to partner and to outsource. We have delivered all of these types of strategies to smaller shippers, shippers that only spend $250,000 and freight a year. That's a big spend for them, but they've been able to outsource, and we've been able to save them money. They now have a full visibility dashboard and everything that they need. So you don't just have to be a real big player in the market to outsource. You just need to find the right size 3PL for your business.
Absolutely. That's so great to hear. And I guess that's how you make it through this crazy world of freight, right?
Yes.
Fantastic. Well, Tracy, thank you so much today for sharing all of your insights and your expertise and being part of the Inbound Logistics Videocast series. It was wonderful to chat with you. Thank you again.
No, thank you. It was great to talk with you, Amy.
Absolutely.